So, that would potentially bring the roster up to 46 characters. Now, you would think that's a nice size of a character roster for Smash, right? Well, it would be, if 46 were divisible by 9, which it isn't. The Smash Bros. Website has all the characters listed in groups of 9, and for functionality's sake, 46 characters would mislead millions into thinking that there are other characters when there aren't. Also, we have a lot of blank spots on this roster, so let's fill them in. So it would only make sense for there to be 54 characters in the game. The question here is, who these characters should be. I've compiled a number of possible and likely characters, along with some that I personally would love to see in the game, along with some that I've heard being brought up in comments and various speculation videos very often. Now, just as a point to bring up, these characters are ones that make sense to be in the game, considering they originated on a Nintendo console or have been on Nintendo consoles prevalently. So I'm going to keep the third-party characters to a minimum. Probably 1 or 2, depending on your definition of third-party. This one is one that I've been personally supporting for a while now. Rayman for Smash. Let's face it, even though he didn't originate on a Nintendo console, Rayman has been doing amazing on them lately. In fact, thanks to the 3DS eShop, practically all of Rayman's games are now on Nintendo consoles. Rayman Legends is his latest game, and it was initially planned to be a Wii U exclusive. Although that plan fell on its face with a year-long delay. Curse you, Microsoft! Delay rage aside, Rayman has a decently large moveset to work off of from Legends alone, from his standard moves and aerial moves. And if you're wondering about his special moves, look no further than Rayman 2: The Great Escape on the N64. Rayman has a multitude of projectiles moves mapped to the B button that can most likely translate well into a 2D environment. His recovery? Helicopter air. For his grab, he could chuck his fists at opponents to grab them from afar. The only uncertainty that I have would be his final smash, which could be one of 2 things for me. The first is kind of similar to Supersonic, only automated in the form of Rayman catching a ride on the shell from The Great Escape. You know, that missile that runs around that you can ride on like a horse, and oddly enough, it neighs like a horse when you ride it. You know, that does sound kind of weird when I put it that way. The other would be a tidal wave of either all of Rayman's various friends in their alternate costumes from Legends, or a tidal wave of Goldenbox's children. All 650 of them. Just don't include the rabbits in any way, shape, or form. Please. They've outstayed their welcome, if you ask me. Also, on the day that Lucina and Robin were announced, they showed a trophy of Rayman, which Sakurai had to get permission from Ubisoft directly to use. They wound up giving him a fully rendered and up-to-date 3D model of Rayman for Sakurai to use. I think there may be more to this story, seeing as it would be a huge missed opportunity to get permission from Ubisoft and only get the rights to a single trophy and not be able to have Rayman as a playable character. I don't know, that's just me though. I don't know about you, but I didn't like how the Star Fox series was represented in Brawl. Now before you go up in arms over that statement, hear me out first. Fox was a balanced fighter. And then you unlocked Falco, who was pretty much just Fox with feathers. Oh yeah, he could also kick his reflector. How nice. Oh, his blaster had the effect that Fox's blaster had in Smash 64. Aside from that, Falco was a carbon copy of Fox. And then you unlocked Fox's nemesis, Wolf. And what did they do with Wolf? Why, make him another carbon copy of Fox, that's what. Sure, there were some minuscule differences, such as his side special going up at an angle, which probably threw some people to their unintentional deaths. And he also had a spike on his short-ranged blaster. Wait, why does his blaster only have short range? That kind of defeats the purpose of the blaster. Ugh. Like Lucas, both Falcon and Wolf can essentially be phased out of the game by giving Fox those differences in special moves for his custom moveset. Also, did we really need 3 fighters using Landmasters? Falco even states, "Personally, I prefer the air." Landmaster. I think you can tell where I'm going with this at this point. Bringing Crystal to further represent Star Fox in a unique way that also brings up the female representation that Sakurai is working so hard on. No pun intended. I mean, we've already got Peach, Zelda, Sheik, Wii Fit Trainer, most likely Jigglypuff, Palutena, albeit kind of rare, Charizard, Lucario, and Greninja can potentially be female, but that's a bit of a stretch, I guess. Both versions of Samus, Rosalina, the female villagers, and all the infinite possible female Mii fighters. That's a lot of female representation. Oh, wait. I almost forgot. There's also Lucina and the female option for Robin. That's 16 characters. That's practically half of the roster already. Not only that, Crystal can have a completely unique playstyle compared to Fox, with her staff and magic spells from Star Fox Adventure, which, mind you, is the only representation of Crystal that I've experienced, and even then not too much, due to not having gotten too far into the game. I'm saving that one for a blind LP in the future. In fact, her final smash could be her summoning her dinosaur friends, or even the Scottish rock golem. That was a thing, right? I'm not just hallucinating or something? Anything would be better than throwing her into another stinking Landmaster tank. Ugh. You know them. You've played as them at least once in Melee and Brawl. They've only had the one game to their name. It's the Ice Climbers. That's about it, actually. I'm just throwing them in here because they appeared in the last 2 Smash games and figured they might have a decent chance of returning relatively unchanged aside from custom movesets. Next! Now, for a few characters that I think stand a decent chance of being in due to either their relevance or their past fame or infamy in Nintendo's history. And what better segue from infamy and relevance than Hades himself? Right out of Kid Icarus Uprising, Hades is the main antagonist and apparently orchestrated the attacks that kicked off the events of the original Kid Icarus for the NES. Smash has been getting more villains to help represent their respective franchises, so why not have the Lord of the Underworld join the fun as well? Being a deity, he can summon his minions for various attacks and he even has laser cannons growing out of his body. He's a very charming character from Uprising, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sakurai included him. After all, he does have a certain bias towards his own creations, and Uprising was his most recent game that he developed, to my knowledge. So it would make sense for Hades to appear. Who knows, maybe Hades could spout a few one-liners for his taunts and victory speech. As for his final smash, he could use his omnipotence to grow giant-sized in the background and fire lasers from his hands and eyes like in the final battle of Kid Icarus Uprising. This next one was a toss-up between two characters, but I'll be mentioning the other one later. I think King K. Rool should make his debut in Smash. He's the primary antagonist of the Donkey Kong Country games, and even Donkey Kong 64, where he even fought Donkey Kong in a boxing ring. He's got so many moves from just those 4 games to draw inspiration from, and I think Sakurai would have a blast with him. Also, each of his alternate costumes could reference his 4 boss encounters throughout the Donkey Kong Country games. You know, I think it seems a little unfair that almost every first-party franchise in this game gets multiple characters. Yet, F-Zero only gets Captain Falcon. I think they should include the Captain's arch-enemy in this game. No, I'm not talking about Samurai Goro. He's already an assist trophy. I'm talking about Black Shadow. Like with Captain Falcon, Black Shadow is a blank slate outright outside of his car, so Sakurai can have a field day with him. Also, with him in the game, we can officially recreate this scene.
Captain Falcon!
Now, before I get to the final character that I think is guaranteed to be in this game, let's go over some honorable mentions that can potentially take this spot above the random button. The first of which is one that people have been speculating since the reveal of both Charizard and Greninja. I'm talking about Sceptile. With the upcoming release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and it getting a Mega Evolution, Sceptile just seems so right for Smash. And it would complete the elemental starter trio for this game. In Brawl, the Grass, Water, Fire trio was represented through Pokemon Trainers 3 Pokemon, Ivysaur, Squirtle, and Charizard respectively. This time around, we have Greninja for Water and Charizard once more for Fire. But no Grass. Sceptile would be a perfect match for Smash. Not only because it would balance out the starter trio, but because it has all the potential for a fast-paced fighter. Also, there's the fact that this time around, all the starters are in their fully evolved forms instead of one starter in each of their 3 stages of evolution. The only thing that makes me think that he won't be able to be in is because Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were announced so much later after this game's roster was probably completed, and that was when X and Y were still in development, so I don't think Mega Sceptile would be even a concept yet at this point. So that's the only downside to suggesting Sceptile. Next up on the wish list is Lucas. Yes, I know that I actually dismissed him as being potentially cut from the roster thanks to the possibility of Ness inheriting his psychic powers through the custom movesets, but there is still the possibility that Lucas returns thanks to the recent popularity of Mother 3 in the past few years. That and that robot chick in moment at the digital event where the guy was asking for Mother 3 could be a clue at things to come. You never know with Nintendo. This one is kind of a stretch, especially considering I already put Sceptile on the list. And if Sceptile were to be included, we'd have 7 Pokemon in the game. But with this one, well, we'd still have 7, since it's one or the other and not both. In this case, I'm talking about the Master of Illusions itself, Zoroark. Think of something like Lucario, but instead of traditional martial arts, use underhanded tactics like biting and clawing or even mimicking the appearance of a foe, and you've got Zoroark. The thing about Zoroark is that it has so much potential with its powers of illusion. It would sort of be like Kirby, only at full scale and with access to all of its opponent's moves. You know, having said it out loud, that could lead to a very overpowered character. Thankfully, in the Pokemon games, Zoroark's ability Illusion stops working once it's been hit, causing it to show its true form, which can easily be translated into Super Smash Bros. Also, Zoroark's ability for illusions could work as its down special, where it'll turn into whoever's at the last player spot. For example, Zoroark is player 1 and player 4 is Mario. Zoroark will turn into Mario, which can lead to some mind games between the player in control of Zoroark, while confusing the other players of trying to figure out who they should be focusing on. Another thing is that the illusion can activate automatically as the battle starts, to further add to the confusion. Oh yeah, also, Zoroark has a 12.5% chance of being female as well, Sakurai. Do you like bombs? I like bombs. Aside from when I got caught in the explosion, but my point stands. A lot of people have been pushing for Bomberman to be in the game recently, and I agree. I think Bomberman would be an excellent addition to the game. He would bring a unique playstyle to the game that we haven't seen before. Plus, Bomberman has had an extremely good history with Nintendo. In fact, the only game in his franchise to have not done too well was X-Zero. And that wasn't even on a Nintendo console. And that game has been picking up sales recently thanks to none other than Proton John and his live streams. Personally, I have next to no experience with Bomberman myself. The only game that I have is the one for the Game Boy Color, and I could never get past the first level because I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do. Yeah. And it cut me some slack. I was still a kid and had no idea how to play video games outside of Pokemon yet. I hear that a lot of people want Geno from Super Mario RPG to appear in Smash. I honestly have no stance on this, but I felt that I had to bring him up. Because I'm pretty sure someone would have brought him up in the comments if I didn't. Although he doesn't seem to have that good of a chance, due to Nintendo not even owning the rights to Geno. Someone in Square Enix owns the right to Geno, and is doing absolutely nothing with the character. I'm pretty sure that if they wanted to, Nintendo could find the guy and buy the rights to Geno, and then they'd be able to use him for Smash, and anything else that they could potentially want him for. But I don't think that's likely to happen. It's not impossible, just unlikely. Outside of Mario RPG, Geno only appeared in one other Mario game, and I'm pretty sure that they didn't have permission to use him there. But it was such a minor appearance that I'm sure it didn't matter in the long run anyway. A lot of people want a second character from the Sonic series to be playable, and since Shadow's an assist trophy, he's out by default. Personally, I think it would be pretty nice to see another character from the Sonic series be playable in Smash, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. But, in the unlikely event that it does happen, I'd like Blaze to be a playable character. Now I'm pretty sure I just confused a bunch of people with that statement, but hear me out first. I don't think Knuckles or Tails would have brought all that much to the table that we haven't already seen before in Smash. Knuckles would have been like a powerhouse character that focuses on his fists, much like Little Neck, only with their aerial movements due to being able to glide. Tails would have used his, well, tails for most of his standard attacks, much of like several of the playable Pokemon and Diddy Kong. And Tails would have also relied on his gadgets for his special moves, much like Snake and R.O.B did in Brawl. With Blaze, however, not only do we get another female character, we get something unique. We get a nimble, fast-paced pyrotechnic feline who can match speeds of Sonic while still having her own unique moveset. In Sonic Rush and its sequel, Sonic Rush Adventure, Blaze was shown to be able to utilize mixed martial arts, as well as create fire jets at her feet to hover in the air momentarily for some decent horizontal movement. She also has a fire-based version of the Sonic Boost, when she does a pirouette that gets engulfed in a spiral of flames, which can easily be translated into either her side special or her dash attack. For her up special, she could utilize her finale for her tricks from the Rush games, where she catapults herself upwards with a burst of flames from beneath her. As for Final Smash, Blaze can pull out the 7 Soul Emeralds and transform into Burning Blaze. However, unlike Supersonic, Burning Blaze wouldn't charge into opponents, but rather use a mixture of her mixed martial arts that are on fire, and have the option of charging up a fireball that she can launch from her hands, sort of Hadouken style. Other than that, I don't see any other Sonic characters appearing in the game. Okay, I hinted at her earlier, but I think another possible character from the Donkey Kong games could be Dixie Kong. She's been playable in at least 2 of the Contra games, and in Tropical Freeze amongst other spin-off titles. She could possibly work if she used her abilities from those games, and for Final Smash she could do something really outrageous, like have her hair come to life and fill the stage and throw opponents off the stage or something. I don't know, I'm no expert on the Donkey Kong series. I just came up with that off the top of my head. Now, this character is probably going to be the second most controversial character on this roster. I'm talking about Bayonetta. Ever since Bayonetta 2 was revealed to be a Wii U exclusive, and that it would come packaged with a remastered version of the first Bayonetta game, I think she had a decent chance of appearing. She seems to have a very diverse moveset comprised of multiple magic spells, a unique way of using her magic guns that are also in her shoes, and her various summons. The only thing that I think would have to be changed about her for Smash is to tone down the hair-based magic. Well, because her hair doubles as her clothing, and I don't think Sakurai would want to push anything higher than a T rating for this game. But other than that, I think her powers and moves can easily translate into Smash without a hitch. In fact, her Megaton attacks can be translated into her Final Smash as well. Plus, I don't think we have any witches in Smash yet. I know we technically have a wizard in Ganondorf, but even that's pushing it. So yeah, those are the characters that I think have the potential to be in the game, but we'll have to fight for that spot. Now, to the final newcomer who I think has the best chance of getting in out of everyone else. Last but not least is one that I'm sure you'll all have seen coming. You know him. You recognize him. It's everyone's favorite purple dragon. No, not that purple dragon. Kudos to you for thinking of him, but no. Awesome, but unfortunately, no. Okay, that was a good one. I needed that. No, I'm talking about Ridley. Now before you close this video, think about this. Mario has 6 representatives, at the very least. Pokemon has a potential of 7 representatives. Fire Emblem has 4 representatives. And Kirby has 3 representatives. And where does that leave the Metroid series? Metroid only has 2 representatives, and they are both Samus. I know that Metroid isn't very character heavy, but it at least has 10 or more humanoid characters that people recognize. And for those who may try bringing up the size debate, I say that size doesn't matter, and it never has. I remind you that Sakurai himself stated in a pick of the day, the Smash Bros. Series doesn't always stay true to scale. Sakurai himself admitted to the fact that Smash doesn't stay consistent with its scaling. If it was anywhere near consistent, then Almar would be about the size of a quarter, which would mean that Almar would be nearly unplayable due to him being so tiny. And if he were to get a poison mushroom during battle, well, he'd disappear from existence. As far as inconsistent sizes go, the same can be said about Ridley himself, seeing as in the original Metroid, he was ever so slightly taller than Samus, and he wasn't even standing upright. He was constantly crouching and leaning forward. Not to mention, the Ridley shadow that we saw in the Smash Bros. Direct stopped moving at a certain point. Perhaps because he's playable? Besides, they were able to upscale Olimar and severely downsized Bowser. Have you ever played Super Mario Sunshine all the way through? Bowser is the size of my house compared to Mario in that game for the final battle. If they could downscale Bowser and upscale Olimar, they can work wonders on Ridley. In fact, there's still the possibility of Ridley being both a playable character and a stage hazard. Confused? Here's what I mean. When the Spirit Track stage was first revealed, it showed Toon Link as a conductor of the train, which led many people to believe that Toon Link was getting cut from the game. Nope! Toon Link is playable. And when he's fighting on the Spirit Track stage himself, Alfonso takes his place as the conductor. Who's to say that they can't do the same with the Pyrosphere? Ridley could be a stage hazard when he's not being played as, and when he is, Alfonso takes his place as the conductor and wrong character. They can substitute him with Meta Ridley, or perhaps create Crocomire, or any of the many bosses, or enemy characters that Samus has faced before in the past, excluding Mother Brain and Dark Samus due to their status as assist trophies. Actually, now that I think about it, they technically could have Mother Brain as a stage hazard, just in the form of the final boss from Super Metroid. What with the mechanical body and the chicken legs. And for those who still want to argue that Ridley is far too big to be playable, let me show you something. This is a side-by-side chart of every character that has been in Smash Bros. From the N64 to the 3DS and Wii U. I'm going to be using their canonical height measurements according to official sources and the average heights for human characters based on their canonical height. If you're wondering where characters like Pac-Man, Mr. Game & Watch, Marthroid, Ike are, they don't have any official heights, so I'm not including them at all. Now look at Ridley. He changes heights every game. These are just 3 examples, but in Metroid 1 for the NES, and by extension the Famicom, since that actually came out first, he was slightly taller than Samus. But the same can be said about Bowser as well, since he is rarely always changing sizes between games. and lately he's been changing size mid-stage. Granted, that may have been due to magic. After all, he does have Kamek as a wizard or witch, depending on what gender you wish to associate with for Kamek. Also, I know there are going to be those who bring up how it would look awkward if they were to downscale Ridley and keep Samus her same size. Well, they've done worse in Smash. Look at the Pokemon! Pikachu here is a little over a foot tall canonically. Now look at Charizard here. He's over 5 feet tall. Yet in Super Smash Bros., Pikachu is nearly as tall as Charizard. So yeah, the Smash series is inconsistent even with characters from the same franchise. So Ridley being downsized won't look at all that awkward in the first place. There's even inconsistencies with this thanks to the Pikmin games and their inclusion of R.O.B the robot and his size compared to Almar. As far as Almar is concerned, he's even smaller than R.O.B is. And this is proven in Pikmin 2, where you can find a decapitated R.O.B's head and carry it back to your ship. That sounds pretty morbid now that I said it out loud. Almar is small enough to fit in that R.O.B's eye sockets. And this is the R.O.B peripheral that was sold with the NES, not the character that was inspired by it. Only ones who would find it awkward are the ones who aren't willing to accept this possibility. In fact, while I'm on the subject, the Zelda characters are all over the place as well. In canon, Ganondorf in Twilight Princess is a whopping 7 foot 6 inches tall, and Dwarf's Link. Yet in Brawl, Ganondorf is just a single head's height taller than Link. Link himself is even shorter than Zelda in Twilight Princess, and yet in Brawl, they're the same size. And as one final nail on the size debate's coffin, many, if not all villain characters that are in boss fights are depicted as being larger than life. Ridley has done it in a majority of his appearances. Bowser's done it as well. In fact, in New Super Mario Bros. 2, Bowser is practically the stage's background due to his increased size. But one thing to note though, is that when a character who's typically depicted as a boss becomes a playable character, they get downscaled accordingly to fit the parameters of a playable character. Once again, I refer you to Bowser, who has been not only a boss character, but also has been a playable character in many Mario sports and kart games. And let's not forget that he is a playable character in half the Paper Mario titles as well. Also, how would Fox be able to fit into the R-Wing in the corner area stage as Smash Bros. Size, when said R-Wing is scaled according to the Great Fox? Size of fates aside, I've seen enough videos on this site with Ridley boss battles to know that he has plenty of potential for a cohesive moveset in Smash. Also, Ridley is one of Nintendo's most iconic villains next to Bowser and Ganondorf, so it would only make sense for him to get some proper recognition as a playable character in the upcoming Smash Bros. Game. In fact, Super Smash Bros. Is a series that celebrates Nintendo's history with their most iconic characters. And when you think Metroid and iconic, after Samus of course, you think Ridley. It would be a great injustice to not include Ridley as a playable character in this game full of playable icons. I mean, we've even got Mega Man and Pac-Man, who are really big gaming icons in this game. Think about it. It only makes sense to put in yet another gaming icon from Nintendo's rich history of iconic characters in this game. Also, Ridley has been in every game of Smash Bros. In one way or another. In the N64 original, he can be seen flying in the background of Planet Z's stage. Ridley made a cameo appearance in the opening to Melee as Samus was fighting him on a space station while carrying something in his foot. And hey, he's roughly the same size as Samus here too. He also appeared as a collectible trophy, and Ridley appeared in Brawl during the Subspace Emissary as a boss. Twice. In fact, the boss fights between Ridley and Male Ridley weren't that far apart from each other. Besides, Kraid was even bigger than Ridley was in Super Metroid. But all size debate silliness aside, I believe that Ridley has the best chance of all these characters to be in for a few more reasons. The first of which lies in the Direct itself. Take a look. Did you see it? Let's play again. If you couldn't tell, Ridley isn't moving like any boss I've seen in Smash Bros. Or any game beforehand. He appears on the one side, flies over to the other, and just stops, doesn't do anything. Then he leaves. Very boss-like, huh? Not at all. In past Smash games, the bosses are constantly moving about or attacking, while giving the player small windows of time to get some free shots in on them. A cool-off period, if you will. Ridley didn't do any of that. He just did the Mario dance and went from side to side. Come on, go! It's time to do the Mario! But if you look even closer, you'll see that once Ridley's shadow stops moving forward, he picks up and holds onto Pikachu for a few seconds, only to release Pikachu from his grip, unharmed? If he's indeed a boss character, why would he grab the player and not, I don't know, attack them? In fact, this is more of a trait that playable characters share. Ever since Melee, you could grab another player and they would struggle to break free of your grip. If the one grabbing did nothing with the other character that's being grabbed, they would eventually break free, like Pikachu does here. Also, according to this forum post, Ridley's proportions are completely different from any other incarnation of Ridley in any of the previous Metroid or Smash games. This could mean that they've redesigned Ridley to be a mesh of multiple Ridleys from across the Metroid franchise for an all-encompassing Ridley. Wow, that last part really turned into a rant, and I think I see where about half of this video is. Oh man, I am insane. If Lucas somehow gets back in and we get another character from the that triple question mark block above the random button, then we might have to expand this roster even further. In fact, this is my second attempt at this roster, because the reveal of Lucina and Robin really threw my previous roster out of whack. And that one had 45 characters in it. Just one character's inclusion threw me off, and I had to increase my roster by 9 more. But hey, this is a lot of characters, and the game is quickly approaching launch in a couple of months. That doesn't leave much time to reveal many more characters, unless the next Nintendo Direct delivers a massive Smash Bros. Character dump, where they flat out confirm a majority of the remaining cast, and confirm how many characters will be in the game. I mean, it's entirely possible, considering we got a triple reveal during E3 with the Mii Fighters. During the Smash Brothers Direct, we got a 5-character reveal all at once. In that, well, we got 5 characters revealed in one day, and yeah, that was really amazing. That was probably the most characters they've unveiled in a single day. But back to the E3 reveal, it's entirely possible because we got the Mii Fighters Palutena and Pac-Man, of all people, revealed at E3. You have no idea just how psyched up I am for this game just from that reveal alone. Speaking of reveals, I'm personally looking forward to collecting some amiibos, because I am quite the collector. If my Pokemon LPs weren't evidence enough for that, I'm looking forward to collecting them both for a complete collection and for making the most powerful amiibo of my mains that I can get. And maybe throw some people for a loop when I feel like turning the tide on a whim with a fully leveled amiibo. Anyway, what are your thoughts on my ideal Smash Bros. 4 roster? Do you think it's reasonable, or do you think it's kind of bare bone? Let me know in the comments below. If you're wondering why I didn't mention a certain character that you may have wanted to be represented in the game, let me know. Although, if it was a character like Batman, Goku, Chuck Norris, or anything like that, that's what the Mii fighters are for. Heck, I made a Mii of Goku and Chuck Norris just to have them duke it out with my favorite Nintendo All-Stars and their third-party friends. That's the beauty of the idea of the Mii fighters. Anyone that you can think of that wasn't in the game can become part of the game as a Mii. Even the most outrageous of characters can work.